All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy.
Welcome to episode 77 of the KissFAQ podcast. I am your host this week, Lonnie Weishauer, stlkiss on the KissFAQ message board. And joining me on the show today is Ken, 69th Blizzard, Marcus Almighty, and joining us for the second week in a row is Alex, the BagBoy, the engaged man, or the betrothed man, as you would say. So, welcome, guys. Thanks for coming on the show. Obviously, Julian is not here this week, so we're stuck with listening to a lot of me this week. So a couple of Kiss things going on, a couple of Kiss items of note going on in the world. The Canadian band Helix kind of played off of a tweet that Gene sent out about this time last year about rock being dead. And they released a song and a video today called Gene Soon Says Rock is Dead. Now, I haven't had a chance to watch it because I've been at work all day, but Ken, you said you've seen it. What did you think of that?
I seen it this morning, and when I saw there was something new, and I'm aware of Helix from listening to them back in the '80s, so and they were a pretty good hard rock band. So I listened to it. Yeah, it was pretty good. They had it was a catchy little tune, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the one guy dressed up like Gene Simmons in the Love Gun costume and the makeup and the whole bit, and he's trying to make some of the Gene's facial gestures and so on and movements here and there when he's in it. But it was good. I enjoyed it. So I'm considering actually picking it up. It's going to be part of a best of, I guess, of Helix.
Interesting. Alex, did you see it? Or?
I did. I saw. And, catchy tune, catchy little riff. Worth a listen if you haven't heard it yet. Worth a watch, and to make you laugh if you're a Kiss fan.
Kind of funny. Mark, what about you? Did you see it?
Nope, I have not seen it, so I can't give any input at all.
Neither can I.
What
I
kind
saw
of
a little
Canadian
still image
fan
of
are
it.
you?
I saw the still image of it, but I didn't
Mark seemed almost insulted to ask that. Mark, you see it? Nope.
No. Sorry, I asked.
I've seen one too many Helix videos in my time living here in Canada, so.
Okay. You're overdosed.
Yeah.
So, another little tidbit today. Kiss announced the 2017 Kiss calendar will be available soon. And I know we've been sitting on pins and needles waiting for that. But the interesting thing about it is the fact that, and it wasn't, I saw it and it's like, oh, it's the Love Gun album cover. So it's 40th anniversary of Love Gun. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that's a deep tease about maybe a project Kiss might have in store for next year, or 40th anniversary. Maybe we're starting a little promotion a little early, maybe accidentally a little early, that that we're really going to play that up. And then somebody posted on the FAQ, like the back of the calendar has like all the photos for each month, and it's photos of Gene, Paul, Eric, and Tommy all in the monster outfits. And
Yeah.
I get it; they're members of the band and members of the band in 2017. But if we're really gonna, if one side of the calendar says 40th anniversary of Love Gun, it's classic era of the band, classic, painting by Ken Kelly on the front. Oh, well, maybe it's like all pictures of still shots from the Love Gun tour on the back. No, it's pictures from the 40th anniversary tour and the monster outfits on the back with the spider stage. And I think somebody said too that, well, half these pictures were in last year's calendar. Can't we even get? It's typical Kiss. Typical Kiss that not only, we're just going to feed you the same shit again, not even a different picture. It's kind of funny.
Hope you don't notice.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no one will notice. It's fine.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's totally misleading by the front cover of that thing, saying Love Gun 40th anniversary calendar. I'm expecting cool stuff in it from photo shoots back in '77 or
Right.
something, and you look at what's going to be in it. It's like, oh my god, what the heck?
Well, and you would kind of, because they're so big on, having the current image and stuff. So it's like, why use an older image of the group, rather an album cover, but then not even have any of the other stuff on the inside?
why have that on the front then?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say this. I am not surprised at all. Kiss is
that is
Kiss is
true.
Kiss has totally
No,
disappointed
of
me.
course not.
True.
They've totally disappointed me the last couple of years when it comes to stuff like this. So why should it change now?
You know,
Well, I'll say, I think there was the comment. Well, I guess another thing is, Paul kind of put rumors to bed with the whole "is Ace coming back" thing.
Right.
And I know, like, my comment was, I was like, I don't know what to believe. I was like, I've been hearing for like almost 10 years now that Kissology 4 is coming out, and I've yet to see that come out. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might as, who knows what's going to happen.
Can't believe anything.
with the Love Gun album on a Love Gun album cover on the front, and then those same pictures on the back, I feel like Dr. Evil and saying like, you just don't get it, do you?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get that calendar. I'll tell you that.
It's like Gene and Paul, you just don't get it, do you?
They missed the boat. They missed
Again.
it again. Another good opportunity there.
I would say if they do want to do the 40th anniversary next year for Love Gun, release the Love Gun Deluxe Edition on vinyl. That would be pretty sweet again.
Oh, the one that's
Yeah, I've listened to that second CD maybe twice.
I've listened to it a couple
They
times.
could have done better with that. They could have done a lot better.
Oh,
Yeah.
very
That's
disappointing.
another episode.
Very
That goes back to the first episode.
That's correct. Well, today is the 77th episode of the KissFAQ podcast, if you can believe that or not. We keep doing this every week. And so we're going to continue a discussion that we did 2 weeks ago, which was, what would you do to change each Kiss album? Name one thing, or name, on some of these albums cases, it might be name a few things you would do to change each Kiss record to make them better. And last week we went from the original, or 2 weeks ago we went from the original album up through Alive 2. And this week we're not going to do the solo albums because I think we could do a whole show just saying what you would do to change the solo albums, because Lord knows you could do at least two of them. You could do a lot with two of them. So maybe we can just do a show. What would you do to change Gene and Peter's solo albums? So we're going to skip that, and we're gonna concentrate on Kiss proper, and we're going to start with the Dynasty album. What would you do to change Dynasty? And this is really Kiss, obviously stepping away from the formula for the first time and trying, new genres. So what would you do to change Dynasty? And Mark, I'm going to go with you because I want to hear your agenda right off the bat.
Well, as opposed to like last week, you'll be very surprised to hear that for Dynasty, I'm really satisfied actually with Dynasty in a lot of ways. I mean, I know I've mentioned this a lot of times before that Dynasty is like my number 3, 4 favorite record that they've ever made. And I've always said before, and I know people who've heard me talk about this probably have heard this 1,000 times, but I've always got a very New York vibe off this record. And I think whatever they did, which there's a lot of things that they did to make that happen, I like what they did here. I think in hindsight, I don't think they could have did any other record at this time. They were steering themselves towards trying to get themselves into a broader audience base. They wanted to pull in more of a younger crowd. So they were trying to follow trends. So I don't think any other record would have come out at this point. And this would have been to change this record would have been not only to convince Kiss, but you would have had to change their whole management group and convince all those people as well that it was not a good idea. And I don't think at that point that would have happened. Now, as far as changing anything on the record itself, I think that frankly Vinny Poncia did a great job on this record. I think that it has a really good punchy sound. I love the way that he used compression on this record. The drums sound really fantastic. I mean, that also goes to show that, Anton's drumming was really good on this record too. I'm sure now there's no surprise that's not Peter drumming on this record. But I really love this record. I mean, I think that it shows a lot of strength in there. I mean, surprisingly, Gene is very not represented well in this record. I think there's only like 2 songs that he does any sort of singing or anything on this record. X-Ray Eyes and Charisma are the only 2 things that he does in this record. So the rest of it is pretty much Ace and Paul for the most part. There's one Peter song, which is surprising, but that also goes to show you who came out the victors in the solo albums. I mean, the 2 guys who, are the most represented in this album did the best with their records. So, I really like this record. I wouldn't really change much of it. I like the sound of it. I actually like the songs that are on here. I mean, sure, I'm beaten over the head to death with, I Was Made for Loving You. If I don't hear that song again, I'll be happy. But, it was a song, though, that broke them. It was a #1 song in, everywhere around the world. And, but that to me really is the only real disco song. That or maybe Dirty Living has a tinge of disco going on to it. But other than that, the rest of it is pretty much rock with a really kind of interesting New York sound to it that I really enjoy and I like. So for me, I don't have much to say in terms of changing this. I would actually leave it.
Wow. You'd change a Live, but you'd leave Dynasty. That's
interesting.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? Let's get yours left. You weren't on the episode we did the first match.
Somebody had a post on KissFAQ. I was just trying to find it, and they made mention of the cover. They were surprised the cover didn't have the costumes on it. I thought they brought up a good point with that. Then again, I'm not too upset with the cover, except for I think we can look at it and go like, oh, Peter's green makeup is higher on one eye than the other. But I do like, I think somebody mentioned like the outtakes from like when he did the poster for the Dynasty album with the straitjackets on, and that would have been kind of a cool cover, I think, if they didn't do one with the costumes, because heaven knows they might not have wanted to show off the costumes right away. People might not have bought the album, but I'm kind of like Mark. All the songs are relatively good. I prefer like the live version of "I Was Made for Loving You" compared to the studio one.
Which live version?
Which live? Oh, not the Alive 3 version. No. I always like the symphony version, but I think like live, I like the version they did in '80s with Bruce Kulick. There's like the one at the Budokan show. I think it's like in '88 or '87.
Yeah.
88 Budokan. That version's a pretty good live version of the song. But I would say, I guess a track I was never crazy for. I've never liked X-Ray Eyes, but and I always thought Dirty Living. Once I heard the demo to Dirty Living, I kind of wish they'd kept it more rock style like the demo compared to a little bit of the overproduction of the album. But then again, you can see where things were at the time with music in 1979 on Casablanca Records with all the other disco acts. Of course, disco was kind of dying out at that time. Sad day. But
we all shake our head at you.
But Dynasty is a good album. I would have liked maybe another Gene song though. Even if he kept X-Ray Eyes, make it a 10-track album, because it was kind of weird. He had like 2 songs from Gene, and he had more songs from Ace than Gene on there. I think the Paul songs are outstanding. Magic Touch is a good one. So I will say that's a song too. I think it was a little overproduced, just with again the style that Vinny Poncia was going with, and I know that's an album which would be interesting to hear. We'll get to it Unmasked to hear what the album could have sounded like if it didn't have a lot of the overproduction to it. So yeah, I'd say just the album cover, maybe with the straight jacket look, and maybe toss off X-Ray Eyes or something else.
Yeah, I think X-Ray Eyes was more of a, and the reason why there's only 2 Gene songs and one on this X-Ray Eyes is representative of what Gene was doing at the time. I mean, his solo album, I think, fell short of the bar, and then what he brought into Dynasty, falls short as well, except for Charisma. I think we all kind of enjoy. I think most Kiss fans enjoy Charisma, but I think and the reason why he only ends up with 2 songs on there is what he was bringing in just wasn't up to par with what ended up on the album. So anyway, that's another story too. Ken, what about you? What would you change about
Well,
Dynasty?
hypothetically, I mean, I do like this album. I like Dynasty a lot. But I would have maybe gone with, I know they tried to go with Vinny for Peter, Vinny Poncia, but I would have maybe picked someone else that was still radio-friendly kind of producer, and I thought maybe Roy Thomas Baker might have been a decent producer for them. If they want to get on the radio too. I mean, he's producing the Cars and among other
Queen.
bands. Queen, yeah, he did, and he did. I think one. Did he do one Alice Cooper album too? I don't know if he did From the Inside or not, but I thought he did. Thought he did From the Inside. But anyway, so I thought he might have been good. Then, like Alex is saying, the cover, I would have liked to have seen them in the Straight Jackets, and then therefore I would have liked to have the album titled not Dynasty. This is the album I would have called Asylum, and with the Straight Jackets on them. So that's where I would have went there. Otherwise, maybe add another Peter song. There was a song he did was called Rumble that he had, and I think that would have been a little tougher song, and maybe a better song. It might have been better in the Dirty Livin', I don't know. I like Dirty Livin' anyway, but that's about it. That's all I would really change. Maybe that's a lot, I don't know. But it's hypothetical, and that's where I would have went with the changes.
I'm going to agree with you on the cover, and I'm going to echo with both what you guys said about the cover, that it's not a bad cover, but I think that Kiss is really known for their covers, especially by that point with how the solo albums presented themselves and how Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over and Destroyer all looked, that you just had their 4 faces. And I think they could have done more with the covers. I really would have liked the Straight Jacket idea. I think that would have worked really well. So that was my number 1 item for it. And then I wouldn't have chose I Was Made for Loving You as a lead single is my other big thing. And maybe it's because I'm tired of I Was Made for Loving You, but I think that it gave a lot of Kiss fans, especially at the time when they were already being accused of catering to a younger audience and not the Kiss fans that had been with them since '74, that they came out with a real poppy song as their lead single. I think it kind of rubbed the longtime Kiss fans the wrong way. Similar in the vein to how Destroyer rubbed the hardcore Kiss fans the wrong way. Again, they come out with that and it's like, what are they doing now? So I think I would have chose a different lead single. And I love Save Your Love on that album, but they're not going to release an Ace song as the lead single off their new album. Especially after they did the solo albums, they want to go back to the formula of a Paul song, being the lead single. So I would have chose something else as the lead single. Maybe even Charisma as a lead singer and make it a Gene song. But I think, and not that I hate I Was Made for Loving You, but I think that with them coming back after the solo albums and then the lead single being I Was Made for Loving You, and I know it was a big hit for him. People are going to say, well, it was a big hit for him. Yeah, it was, but I think for the hardcore Kiss fans, it kind of left them thinking, what's happened to my favorite band all of a sudden? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would do.
Yeah.
But right. But just one second though, I just wanted to say something really quickly in regards to what you were saying, how you were saying that that song was a big hit for them. I Was Made for Loving You, right?
Right.
Which was number 11 in the United States, number 6 in Austria, number 1 in Canada, number 2 in France, number 2 in Germany, number 1 in Netherlands, number 10 in Norway, number 1 in New Zealand, number 19 in Sweden, and number 2 in Switzerland. So yeah, it was pretty popular.
So it did pretty well, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's.
I mean, that's to say that it did good for them was kind of putting it mildly, I would say, because in
yeah,
retrospect, that is a lot of territories that it did really well in, right?
yeah. And there's another point to make too, as a kind of side. If they would have released it second, maybe the albums would have. It all depends on what the first single would have done. Had they not done that, had they chose Magic Touch maybe or Charisma, how those one or two songs could have done, and then if it did halfway decent, and then you throw out "I Was Made for Loving You" as a second single, it could have sustained sales longer maybe and better. I don't know. Who we'll never know. But I guess it's a gamble either way.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just not a big fan of it. So. This is a hypothetical show, so I can have as crazy an opinion as I want.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Unmasked.
We said our grievances with Unmasked a few weeks ago when we talked about Unmasked on the anniversary of the show. And I'll just say mine real quick. And mine was the cover. I hate the cover. I think it's maybe, I can't say it's the worst Kiss album cover because there are some bad ones out there. But I will say it is up there as one of the worst covers. And having on the cover a person saying that I think they stink, I think is one of the dumbest ideas you could ever come up with. Saying that, oh, here's my favorite band's new album and it says they stink on it. What are you... It's just ridiculous. And I would have gone away from Vinnie Ponce as the producer. I would have tried to go back to a harder roots at this point, especially when we've talked about this before with what other bands were doing in 1980, like Judas Priest and Van Halen. That Judas Priest, Van Halen, AC/DC, and we're putting out She's So European. So I would have changed I wouldn't have gone back to Vinnie. And we've talked about this before too, that maybe there was a deal when Vinnie came on as a producer of Dynasty that they were going to give him a 2-record deal to be the producer. I really don't know. So for me, it's the production, and it's the cover, and it's also some of the song selection. Like I said, She's So European and things like that. I said if you would have had Eddie Kramer as a producer or just somebody else as a producer, I would have just told Gene no. And it goes back to what we were saying a little bit ago about what Gene was bringing to the table at the time while he only has 2 songs on Dynasty. I said, no, you need to go back to the drawing board and you need to try harder because this is awful. Mm-hmm. So those are my 3 things with Dynasty. Song selection even. I think it's the first time anybody said song selection for something they changed. Song selection, production, and cover. And I don't know what I like about Unmasked if I'm saying all those 3 things. So. Somebody else go. Ken, what about you? What would you do for Unmasked?
Okay, yes, like you said, we talked about this not long ago in another episode. But yes, change the cover. I would have made it a gatefold cover, and
with
maybe
a longer bad comic strip.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe the poster image on the inside, right? Or you could have done the longer bad comic inside again. I also thought about, I know I didn't like that. I still think they stink, comment on there. Maybe they could have put something, those little dials you can have, and it's on like a wheel, and you could change the comment that guy says. It has. I still say they stink. You could change it to, I still think they rule. I still think whatever, or something else. But so anyway, you could do that. Otherwise, packaging's okay. It's nice that they had the poster in there, which is a very cool poster. As for production, yeah, it's the sound compressed. I don't know. It's just not the greatest. So I don't know if I said about changing the producer. I think I would have went with. I wrote down Ted Templeman. That's what I would have went with, as trying to get them out of the Dynasty mode and into a more harder rock mode of an album. And then I would have replaced "You're All That I Want" with another song, maybe
Yeah, the Gene song.
a Gene song that's better out that he might have had laying around. So otherwise, it's a good album. I mean, I like it a lot, but those are just some things that I would have changed.
Yep.
Who's next?
Alex.
I'd say like the same. Just the cover just doesn't make sense. You'd almost think like "Lick It Up" would have been called "Unmasked," was showing what they look like without it, and it just doesn't fit at all. I mean, if anything, it could have at least had like a gatefold cover and had a cartoon drawing of them without the makeup on, or something like that. But yeah, I'd say just the cover, just change it. I mean, and it's nothing against the guy who did it. Like the cover itself, like it's a cool, the guy did a great job with it. It just didn't fit, I'd say, the period and stuff. Can you guys hear me? It's all quiet on my end.
Yep.
No, I hear you.
Okay, good. It's just all quiet. And I'd say song selection. I like "Is That You," but like I had to go through on a program on my computer, and I edited out the little scream that Paul does at the beginning because I just find it to be super annoying. So I just cut it out, and so that's probably like the only major change I would have done. That, and I'm not crazy for the whole sirens sound at the beginning of Torpedo Girl, so I also edited that out of the version I played because I just think it's
Playing
just
producer?
yeah. I only played producer with my version on my laptop. Well, because I saw Ace. I got to see Ace Frehley live in 2008, and he did a medley. And I remember all of a sudden he just heard like the drum thing and stuff, and then he had his bass player Anthony Esposito go into Torpedo Girl, and it was like, no way, this is way cool. So I've always kind of liked that version without the siren stuff, but and I do like "You're All That I Want." But I like the demo version. I think it's from '77, though. I think is really when it came from, that song. So I'm kind of like with you, Ken. I probably would have dropped that and hopefully had a different song. And even though it's a catchy, popular tune, easy as it seems, just kind of, it's not a Kiss song. I'm sorry. It's.
There's a lot of songs on there that aren't.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I mean, I guess technically Shandy's not a Kiss song, right? Because Paul was the only member on that song. So, but yeah, no. I think we've all touched on it production-wise. It's another album. I said like with Dynasty, what would have been cool if they had like a rockier version of the album to kind of see what it would have been like without all the overproduction.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? What would you do for Unmasked?
Well, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the stuff that's already been said here, just for the sake of keeping time flowing here, because we all know about the cover. We have all said that 1,000 times already. But I'll tell you one thing. There's one thing that this album sorely, sorely needs, and we've already talked about this a bit too, is a better producer. Now, I've said before in the prior episode that we did with this, that Kiss is a kind of band that needs to have a producer changed every album. They get too used to somebody and stagnation starts. And this is another great example of them getting the same guy back in. They're all comfortable now. I mean, at one point I read somewhere that Paul Stanley actually had Vinnie Poncia living in his apartment. They were all best buddies. So, of course, if you brought in a stinker, they'd be like, Paul, it's beautiful. No problem. We'll use it, So that's not good. You don't want that. You want to have a separation between producer and artist to some point. So, and I've been doing a lot of listening lately to records from back in the late 70s and early 80s. And one guy who I think would have been absolutely perfect, that could have even took some of the crap that was on this record and turned it around and made it good. Well, you can't do anything good with She's So European. But beside that song, I would say that for sure the guy to bring aboard would have been, and you might be surprised, Robert John Mutt-Lange. At that point in his career, he was really early, young. He hadn't been plagued by the Def Leppard way of thinking at that point. Already at that time, he did some records by like a band called City Boy, I think, and stuff like that. And it's a lot more. It's rock. He did a lot of rocks. I mean, even listen to like High and Dry by Def Leppard. I mean, that's such a rockin' record. and he knows how to make records that really rock, and he's really good at production no matter what anyone says. He makes records that radio loves and that sound good on radio, and that's what they needed to take this pile of garbage and turn into something that people would actually liked better. I mean, come on, Shandy, I think that should have been just tossed right off this record, number one. And I think another one, I don't like What Makes the World Go Round. I mean, that should have been taken off as well and put in the garbage bin as well. Now, the rest of the songs, I think he could have did his magic and really did something with it. I mean, he has a good grasp of making big, powerful sounding drums, which is something that's really lacking in this record. And the guitars are nowhere near in your face. They're somewhere down the hallway hiding somewhere, these amps, okay? So he knows how to bring these things out forward, and and he knows how to place vocals really good in a mix. And I mean, this is all the things that this stuff needed. I mean, it just sounds like real 80s bubblegum, this stuff that's on this record. I mean
sounds like a load of crap. Come on, call it what it is.
It's a load of garbage, And I mean, like I said, this record's grown on me over the years. I have bought it a couple more times on different variations on vinyl, but I can just imagine what this would have sounded like if somebody like Mutt Lange took it, was behind the board, and put his foot down like he did with some of these other bands that he worked with, and said, "Listen, guys, this is not too good. Let's work on this and let's make it better." And could you imagine a better sounding Unmasked? Could have been a pretty good record.
Thanks for your brief response.
I'm going to keep this brief.
That's funny. Yeah.
We're going to 10 minutes right in the meantime.
Yeah, I understand where you're going with it. Yeah.
That's all right.
It's funny.
I get it. Unmasked gets me fired up, though, too, sometimes. So it's fine.
That's right.
Mark, have you found out what makes the world go round, though?
No, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
Well, I wish that the boss was here so we could talk about what we would change about Music from the Elder, but maybe he strategically removed himself from this episode so he wouldn't have to talk about what he would change to Music from the Elder. But Music from the Elder, what would you guys do? It's obviously, we're really going in some different directions now, but Music from the Elder, concept album, obviously, it's, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. So, Ken, why don't you go first this time?
Well, I really like the Elder a lot because I like it a lot because it's different, so different than everything else they've done, and it's kind of, when I first listened to it, I thought, wow, this is different. It doesn't sound like Kiss, a normal Kiss album, or anything that came before it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story and what they were trying to do, and the tunes. I enjoyed the songs. So from there, I mean, I don't have that much to change except the album cover. It's got to have an image of Kiss somewhere. You got to have it. Either if it's not on the cover, and what I said before in another episode, have that one, like the Japanese overlay that they had on the Elder, something like that. They could have had that picture. I thought, well, maybe they have a pop open where the knocker is. You open it, and there's an image of Kiss.
Kind of like $1 Billion Babies or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or from the inside, they had all that.
Yeah. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. It's from
like
the inside.
Alice
from
Cooper,
the inside.
right?
Yeah.
So that's something I would have definitely. You got to have a picture of them somewhere, or put it in a poster. They didn't include a poster in this one. This is like, they had 2 albums in a row with a poster, and then this one had nothing extra, right? The goodies were gone. They stopped doing the goodies. Yeah, money, I guess, is the reason. But I would have loved to have seen a poster like that Japanese cover, that photo. So that would have been the only thing I changed there. Otherwise, what else? I would have made it a double album, as originally intended. They wanted to make this a double album originally.
More
And
stuff?
it didn't happen. More. I want more. They could probably tell the story better. I'm figuring they could have told the story better had they had a double LP. And you could have fit a lot of the stuff that was dropped. They had to cut out, or, it's the same thing. They put the original pressing had the songs in an order that was not the original intended order that they meant to have. Bob Ezrin wanted. They changed it and put the oath on first because, oh crap, Kiss is like gone way off somewhere. This is our hardest rocking song on the album. Let's put this on first, and that screws up the story right there.
I believe that actually the executives' exact words were, when they listened to the first time, was, "Where are the guitars?" Sorry to interrupt, Ken. Go back to what you're saying.
No, I'm sure that was right. So, yeah, so they changed the song lineup to try to make it, like, oh crap, these fans are gonna bail for sure now.
Well, yeah, that's exactly
So,
why the Oath is the lead
but
song.
yes, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Not much changes for me. I can't wait for Julian's book. I can't wait, Julian. So, yeah, cross your fingers.
Crossed. Mark, let's go back to you. Let's hear about the Elder.
The Elder is another one of those records where when I first heard it, I thought it was just like I wanted to put my fingers down my throat and run to the bathroom and puke. But, now when I listen to it now,
Mark, do you like Kiss? Why are you on this show?
I love Kiss. I love Kiss. But I'm saying, but you know what? I always felt that if you're a real Kiss fan, you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to be honest with it. The only way a band gets better is if they hear what people dislike as well as what they like. Kiss is being surrounded by yes people. That's the problem half the time. There you go. Now, I'll tell you the one problem with this record, honestly, is that it was done at the wrong time, because Bob Ezrin at this point was a complete nut job at this point. Okay, I mean the guy's mixing board is probably covered in cocaine at this point, and he openly admitted that he was probably not in his best physical place at this point. And don't forget too, 79, 80, he just finished doing The Wall, which is one of the biggest Pink Floyd records ever. So, think about it. Kiss goes in to do a record. They get Bob Ezrin to do it, so they're thinking, hey, this guy just made a huge concept record. Maybe if we make a concept record, I mean, this is a guy who knows how to make concept records. I mean, this thing sold like 20 million copies or something insane, right? So that's what Kiss wanted. They wanted to get back into the mainstream. And Gene's excuse always was that we wanted to make a record that that our critics would respect us as musicians for, kind of thing, which I thought was a load of hooey. They just wanted to do it because they thought that it would sell more records, and because Ezrin was the guy who could do that. Now, of course, everything went completely off the rails because Kiss is not the kind of band to make a concept record. I don't think they have musically the skills to do it. But I mean, that doesn't mean to say that they couldn't have made a great record, because what I'm getting kind of anxious about here is that I heard some of those songs that they were working on prior, when they were working at Ace's studio, and that whole record that they said they were going to ditch, and then they made The Elder after that. I mean, a lot of those songs were really good. If they would have took those songs and made that into an album, I thought it would have probably put them back on course. And it would have been a pretty good record. Maybe not like a blockbuster seller, but people would have loved it, and it would have guided them back on track, and it would have went back to normal, I think. But no, they went ahead and got Ezrin. He comes along and comes up with these crazy cocaine-filled ideas, and they go ahead and make this record that's, it just doesn't sound like a Kiss record. I mean, come on. When you start hearing Fanfare at the beginning, you're like, uh-oh, you have to go back and look at the cover. Did I get the right record here? Like, what the hell's going on here? But but it, I mean, that's just that's just my whole point of this. I think if they just would have went back with the more rockin' material, they could have even kept Ezrin, honestly, even as how he was. He knows still, even in that state, how to make good records. It's obvious. Mm-hmm. And he could have made them a really good rock record. But I think that once they all kind of bought into the whole, let's make a really grandiose story, you can turn into a movie and this and that, and then everything started flying off the rails with ideas that just went overboard. And before they knew it, they were 3/4 of the way done a record, and it's too late to, stop now. They have to go through with it, and we have what we have, right?
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of hooey.
So do you like the
Your language.
I do like it. I
I was
mean,
getting
now
trouble.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it as much now, like I said. But I mean, it's also
grew
one of
on
those
you.
records that has to grow on you. And
Yeah.
when you're like 18 or 19 years old and you're used to like
That's not what you want to hear.
stuff like Love Gun, you don't want to hear stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? What would you do to change music from the Elder?
I love the Elder, contrary to
Julian
Van-
Lemming.
the
Slim.
that Mark. No, I remember picking up the Elder when I was in 8th grade. That was like 13 years ago. That's half my life ago. Whoa.
No, my God.
And and I remember hearing Odyssey though, and I guess because growing up in my home with and honestly being like the good LDS kid hearing the Motab and symphonies and stuff. So I'm hearing Odyssey though for the first time because that's I think the third track. And I remember thinking like how kind of like majestic it was, and so I was super excited. And I'm taking a humanities class up here on campus. So we've been going through the Renaissance period. And so it's been interesting mention like the fanfare and kind of just the boy with almost that kind of like Baroque style instrumentation and so forth, and even a little bit before that with like a lute and stuff like that. They had some of the weirdest instruments going on. But I'd say if I was to change anything with the Elder, it really just would have been packaging. I mean, I would have liked it longer, even with the dialogue. But if anything, I would have liked the packaging to at least have had the story of what the flip was going on with it.
What's your language?
Sorry, guys.
The-
But yeah, it would have been cool if anything, if there was at least on the lyric sheet, like here's the paragraph. Now listen to just the boy, and then after you listen to just the boy, you even had just the dialogue or the next part of what was taking place, and the young boy went on his journey and so forth, and now thus begins the Odyssey. Play track 3.
Let me
That would have
interject
been
real quick.
Yeah.
As you say, you just maybe I don't want to lose it. It's similar to what maybe like Rush did on 2112.
yeah.
They did something like that. If Kiss would have done something like that, would have been great.
They put
There's
like a
things
little
to add.
little small bit of the story at the top on top of the lyric to explain each song.
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea.
So it's a good idea, Alex.
Mark likes the idea about Rush.
Okay.
Crazy.
And yeah, so I guess for me, I would have even now, even though they didn't do the Elder movie and stuff when they repackaged the Elder for the remasters, because like Ken mentioned the American edition, I think Canadian edition might have been the same too. They kind of redid the track sequence, so when they put everything together, it would have been nice. They just kind of packed like here's the story, here's what was supposed to take place in it. But I agree. At least if I could have a double LP, just to have had that dialogue in there, just put back in, just to hear what it is. And like you mentioned, even a picture of the band, because even just opening up the gatefold, or if you had the CD, the little booklet, when the Earth was young, they were already old. That's not enough to get you going and stuff. I mean, gosh,
That doesn't get you there.
Yeah,
Antique furniture.
no, you get more information. I feel like you're playing like the Legend of Zelda without an instruction booklet and stuff going on there. I feel like it's a soundtrack to it. So I'd say that at least packaging and like you mentioned, just there was no poster. You went from Dynasty and Unmasked to solo albums, all with all this extra stuff, and then you get. I can only imagine what it was like, for those who bought the album and. But probably like, what the heck is this? Sorry for the language, Lonnie.
No.
Julian do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
Just put beeps in there to make it sound like
Julian already admitted he doesn't listen to the show if he's not on it.
Yeah, I know. But I'd say that's probably would have been about it. It's just the dialogue and I mean, I guess you said I would really think some of the other songs. If you guys haven't, YouTube, some of the outtakes and stuff that do exist from it, and check it out. And it seemed like they'd had some decent material they could have added along with the album. But
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I kind of took the Elder to be what it is. That it is the concept album, and I'm not gonna say that I want to change everything. I don't want it to be a concept album. The Elder is the Elder. So what would I do to change the Elder? I'm with you guys. I'd have a picture of the band on there. It was Eric Carr's first album with the band.
Yeah.
Why not show him off a little bit? They hadn't played but the one show in America with Eric Carr. Show Eric Carr off a little bit. He was on they're on the cover of People magazine with Eric Carr. And there are other publications, but I would have had a cool image of the band with Eric on there, and
Yeah.
maybe say what you want about those. Maybe it's because of the Elder outfits that they decided not to put an image of the band on there, but maybe have more of a Dynasty like cover where you're seeing more of the faces and you are the outfits that the band's wearing, but. That's a big thing I would have changed, and those. If you buy the Elder now, it has the track listing the way that Kiss had originally intended it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bought it when it came out, and even if you bought it up until '97 with the remasters, it always had the Oath as the lead track on there. Yeah. So I think I would have. And I understand, and we mentioned already why they did that. Is because the record executives listening to this and they're like, holy crap, what is this? We cannot open up the album with fanfare.
Right.
But I think I would have left it with fanfare opening because it does tell the story better with the songs in the sequential order. But it's a time of LPs and not CDs or even MP3s as it is now. And lead track on an album was very important at the time.
It's also interesting to make note, though, that Julian mentioned that that order that came out after with the fanfare, that's not even the proper one that's supposed to be either. That there's supposed to be supposedly a one that we haven't seen yet. That's supposed to be the actual real track listing.
Tease again.
Have to read the book.
There you go.
And also real quick, speaking of like having a photo, and this is the music video, but what if they'd even use like that image as the gatefold for the music video?
Sure, that'd be
With,
cool.
like the wording on top there, so you at least had an image of the band, and it's nothing crazy, but
it's crazy that there's not even an image of the band at all anywhere, front, back, or anywhere. So being such an image conscious band. That there's no image of what they look like at all, especially with Eric Carr's first album. So. Let's move on to Creatures, and I think this is probably going to be an easier one, unless Mark has a few things he'd like to change about Creatures. He had a lot of things he wanted to change about Alive. So
I want to keep it short, but first of all, let me go.
I'm going to go first on Creatures. I hold Creatures up there with Destroyer and Revenge in my book, and there's not a lot I would change about Creatures of the Night. I think the sound-wise on a studio record is right up there with Rock and Roll Over and Revenge, the way Kiss is supposed to sound on a studio record. It is a tough record to say I would change this, I would change that. I get why. I guess if there's one thing I don't like about there's one thing I don't like about it, and there's one song I skip almost every time I listen to Creatures of the Night. It's "I Still Love You." I like the version on MTV Unplugged, but I really skip over it. It's long. It's too long. The studio version is, in my opinion, and I get why it's on there. It's a ballad and whatnot, but I skip. I would either shorten that song or leave it off for something else. As I still love you. I don't really just care for it. I mean, you guys might have a different opinion, but I don't care for it at all. It's the only song I would change. It's about the only thing I would do to change Creatures of the Night. So, Ken, what about you?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to change on this. It's such a great album. The production of it is fantastic. The only thing I'd change is, I would have added one more song. Either, again, It's My Life, I would have loved to have on there, or Not for the Innocent, the original version where Gene and Paul are trading off vocals. I would have loved either of those two songs added on there. Especially, It's My Life. They could have put down there, that would have been the lead-off single instead of I Love It Loud, in my opinion. Otherwise, maybe they could have put Vinny's image on the cover of the album instead, like you see on the bootlegs out there.
Well, they
Because
really
it's
had
really
that
misleading. It's really misleading. But I know they did that for their record company. They had to make it look like Ace was still in the band, or else they weren't going to get, the contract was going to be null and void or something like that. So I understand that, but it would have been nice to at least put, I don't know, even put the lead guitar who played lead guitar on different songs in the credits. But otherwise, it's a great album.
You got to remember
can't
though
change it.
that's the era though where ghosting was very popular, where lots of bands were doing this ghost session stuff, and nobody was crediting people at that time for those kind of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Going back to even Antown Fig on the other prior albums, even. So, yeah, it's a great album. I can't really say anything bad about it at all. There's nothing bad about it.
No, it's a hard album. It's where Ken and I are kind of on the same page. It's kind of like where we were with Destroyer and Alive, and then it's like I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about it. I'm with you though on It's My Life. I didn't think about that. That I take off. I still love you for It's My Life. That's
Then replace it with that.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, what about you? I'm going to say Mark for last.
Let's see. I think I would switch the track order of Saint and Sinner to War Machine. Put Bruce Kulick on the cover. Tone down the drums on. No, I'm just kidding. That's the '85 edition, and that one sucked.
You're going to put someone else's ass on the back cover instead.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. But I like you guys. It's just such a great album. There is one song I don't love, and I don't love I Love It Loud. I think it's a horrendous song, and if I could take a track and toss it, I would toss that song in the gutter, never hear it again.
Is it because you're burnt out on it, or just because you just don't like it and never liked it, though?
I just never liked it. It was always slow. It just kind of always dragged. I mean, I will say I think there was a live version I heard once, and it was all right. It's sped up, but I really have never really cared for the song that much. I'd rather It's My Life. In fact, I've made a mix one time where I took the It's My Life version off the box set and put it in between where I Love It Loud would go, and I thought it had a good feel to it and stuff. So I would have done that. Like you, I don't mind the song I Still Love You. I think really 99% of Kiss fans, and I could be wrong. So, but I think everybody's like you. The MTV Unplugged is probably the definitive version of that song. Whereas the studio version just kind of drags just a little bit. But production-wise, they did a great job. And like Ken, it would have been nice to have seen Vinny on the cover. I wish Vinny hadn't shot himself in the foot so many times, because it would have been cool maybe when he did the remasters to have put like Vinny on the cover at that point in time, and then in the inside booklet have the original cover. I just think it would have looked cool. With Lonnie shaking his head no, but that's okay, Lonnie. This is what I would do, not what Lonnie
That's
would
right.
do.
It's an opinionated, hypothetical show.
But no, I mean, like you guys, they did a great job production-wise. It's how a Kiss album should sound. I mean, when you hear the intro to Creatures of the Night with Eric Carr's, thunderous drums, it should have been the album after Unmasked too. So, like I said, I just really got rid of I Love It Loud, and anything It's My Life, and there is the rumor that there might have been a version recorded of Back on the Streets with Paul. If there was, that would have been maybe cool to have on there instead of I Still Love You. But who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
How you wrap it up. Mark,
Okay,
what do you
well,
got?
I'm going to say this. As far as records go, this is one of my favorites. So this one gets a big thumbs up for me. And there's a couple things I got to point out on this. Number one, I know that you guys were saying about, changing songs and this and that. I think that this has the perfect length of a record. I mean, it's 38 minutes, 39 minutes long. That's a good length for a record, especially for a Kiss record. It's one of those lengths where you're getting into it and you want more, and they leave you wanting more. I've always found that's the one thing with this record. I always found out when it got to War Machine, it's like, oh, we're already here already. Like I could hear like more music from this record, but they didn't do it, and that's smart. because it makes you keep wanting to go back to this record. I listen to this record a lot, I find, mainly because of that. And this record also shows to me that the band actually cared more about the direction of their sound. I mean, there's many stories of Gene and Michael James Jackson scouting studios trying to find a good drum room for this record. And I mean, the drum room was critical to this because I mean, listen to the sound of those drums on this. That's what makes this record. And I mean, songs like I Love It Loud and I Still Love You benefit from a big, huge drum sound like this because remember, this is one thing we were always taught in production school is a slower song benefits more from more production than a fast song. You can do more with a slower song because there's more space available with a slower tempo. So that's why when you start hearing like the doom doom and like I Love It Loud, you can really hear those reverbs and stuff like that on there, which you wouldn't hear if it's a big blisteringly loud fast song, right? It doesn't accent it as much, those kind of things that they do. And another thing that needs to be pointed out is there was a change of producer. Michael James Jackson came in. He did a great job with this. He turned these songs into gems, in my opinion. I mean, the guitar tone on this record is like unbelievable. And another thing that has to be pointed out, in my opinion, is the man who mixed this record, Bob Claremountain, one of the most legendary mix producers who worked on the power station in New York City for a long time. I mean, this guy is everything, in my opinion, that he mixes turns into gold. And I mean, he has so many great production tricks, whether it was piping the sound of the whole mix into like a nice huge bathroom and remiking the sound in there to get a big huge cavernous sort of sound. It just all these little tricks added to making this record sound fantastic. So as far as changing anything on this record, I don't think I would change a single thing. I love everything on this record. I wouldn't change any songs on it. I wouldn't change any production on it. I wouldn't change really anything. I wouldn't change the fact that they had guest people doing guitar solos on it. I wouldn't change the fact that Gene only played 2 bass guitars on the whole record on this thing pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't change anything really. I mean, whatever they did to make this record, in my opinion, it worked. And let's just leave it at that. And that's what I'm going to say about this record.
Wow. Impressive. I think, Creatures is one of those albums I think that it's hard for us to critique it because it's held in such high esteem amongst all Kiss fans. So, that being said, let's move into Lick It Up. Same producer on this one, so Mark might have a problem with it. But, Alex, let's hear what you have to say about Lick It Up first.
I'm a fan of Lick It Up. I think it's a great album. The only song I wasn't too crazy for was Gimme More. Not too keen on that.
You know, like the Love Is Sweet, someone saying, "Come on, lick my candy cane" line in there. It's
no,
freaking awful.
Not doing it for me.
Doesn't get you there either, huh?
No. And I loved when they did Young and Wasted with Eric Carr. I'm kind of disappointed he didn't get to kind of do the studio version of it. After he did it live, obviously he did it live on the Animalize tour, which is later, so they might not have known what he would have sounded like doing it live, doing the lead vocal. But definitely, I feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity there on that one. I think they had some good tracks on it. I think Gene, was pretty good. Not for the Innocent. I love the version that circulates with Paul and Gene doing the trade-off vocals, and I wish that version would have made the album on that version. And I think Gene, for his non-makeup era, this is probably one of the albums where you had quality writing, at least from Gene, until you get to Revenge. And I'll give you that one, Lonnie, because I know Lonnie's a huge Revenge lover, even though I think it's a little overrated. You really don't get that. You really don't get that quality writing from Gene, really, after Lick It Up until you get to Revenge. The cover, I mean, there's the whole thing now if Vinny was a mannequin or whatnot, or right. I guess you can't see how bad Gene's Photoshop, but his hand being like way up to there, but his like wrist is way down there. I think the cover was kind of a classy cover, just to do the Unmasked, taking off the makeup and stuff. I thought it was kind of a cool contrast from the first album cover being black with the makeup, and this one is, a white background without the makeup. So Like I said, I don't want to change much. Just give me more and have the different version of "Not for the Innocent" with Paul and Gene doing the trade-off vocals.
Yeah, the Get Up's high up there with
Mhm.
in esteem as far as albums go too. So, Mark, what about you? What would you do for Look It Up?
Well, Lick It Up is I don't mind it. It's not a bad record, but I think it's a step backwards from Creatures of the Night, to be quite honest with you. Number one of the things I think I would have did differently on this was, again, I would have probably changed producers on this record. Now, somebody who I think that would have worked out on this record really well, actually, is Max Norman. Now, at that point, he already did like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman for Ozzy and stuff like that. And he'll later on he'll go on to do a bunch of really great records for lots of other people. And he has a good grasp of hard rock, borderline metal stuff, even heavy metal in general stuff. And I think at this point, Kiss was trying to steer the boat in that direction. So I think what actually what needed to be done here was to kind of take Creatures and bring it to the next level, which I don't think they did. If that's one thing that I would have changed, it's that. Right? Look at that picture.
That's awful.
Oh my god.
They're wearing more makeup there than they were
When
on
they did
Creatures of the
with
Night.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing though that really bothered me about Lick It Up, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, is that when I look at this cover here, which is the actual normal album cover, if I was the guy who was directing the photo of this, I would have walked up to Vinny and smacked him upside the head for wearing that purple stupid jacket that he's wearing there. I mean, look at it. Every single person in that picture are wearing black except him. He sticks out like a sore thumb. Okay.
But he's not wearing it. It's the mannequin.
It's a mannequin. That's
okay. So I would have smacked the mannequin then.
There you go.
And there you go. And then I would have just got rid of that stupid vest, put him in a nice leather jacket, and then you would have had a nice harmony. It would have looked like a band. It would have looked more unified instead of having just three guys who look cool and then one kind of dork there with a purple or pink thing on him. Come
Dork's
on.
being nice too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one thing that I'm gonna say that I was really actually surprised about in terms of this record is, this Friday they just passed on the Kiss Room. I don't know if you guys listened to the Kiss Room at all, but in the beginning of the show they played the actual demo that Vinnie Vincent had of Lick It Up that he presented to Paul Stanley when they were writing Lick It Up. Now, if you were to listen to that version of it, I'm sorry, Paul, but why you have any credit on this song is beyond me. Like, Vinny sang it, he did everything on there, and everything on that version is exactly present on the final version of Lick It Up. I don't know what Paul needs any credit for on there, besides the fact that he sung the final version, but that does not give somebody a songwriting credit, I'm sorry. And he doesn't deserve any songwriting credit in that song, because that is a total Vinnie Vincent song.
It really makes you wonder how much Vinny should be the only songwriter on a lot of those songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's what it made me think. I'm thinking to myself, really? I mean, if we were to get the demos for all the songs that he was involved in, would we really be... I wouldn't be surprised at this point if most of them sounded how they did in the end, and he just said, yeah, this is great, Vinny, we're going to do it, and that's it. But, that goes back to, again, him being a good writer. He might not be a good person, but he's a good songwriter. Okay, so, and that's why they wanted him, and that's why they used him again later in Revenge, right? So, like I said, Lick It Up, I think, should have been a step forward sonically from Creatures. I don't know how they could have did that, but I think another producer like a Max Norman could have did it. Bring back Bob Clearmountain to mix it again, But the sounds were getting bigger then. Like the whole sound of heavy metal and stuff was getting so large and stuff like that. They needed to do that, and I think that's one thing where they kind of dropped back a bit with this record. They should have made everything big, stand out more, a little bit more guitar crunch, a little bit more in your face. I mean, I love Lick It Up. I think it's a great record. The songs on as they are good. It's just, I think the production is what's making it not as fantastic a record as it could be.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not gonna criticize what you have to say about Lick It Up being.
Ooh,
I'm not gonna
okay.
criticize your thoughts. What a gentleman I am. But Lick It Up to me, and I understand why they went with Michael James Jackson again because they were really happy with the way he's back. They were really happy with the way Creatures sounded. So I think they wanted to continue down that road.
Oh yeah.
I know, I definitely understand that. Song for Paul always says that he feels like Creatures is a superior album to Look It Up, and that people listen with their eyes more than anything, and that's why Look It Up sold better than Creatures of the Night. And I agree with Paul. I like Creatures better than I like Look It Up. I like Creatures substantially better than I like Look It Up. I don't dislike Look It Up, but to me, Creatures is I hold that in much higher esteem than I do Look It Up. I love the opening track. Exciter's a great way
Yeah.
to kick it off. I mean, it really just kicking the balls to start off the album and kind of really get you into it. So, that being said, I don't have a whole lot to say about the album's not bad. I mean, it's good songwriting. Like Mark said, Vinny might not be the greatest guy in the world or the best bandmate in the world, but you can't take away the fact that he's an excellent songwriter, and it shows through immensely on this album. And he probably doesn't get it. And honestly, he probably doesn't get enough credit on this album for what he did. So,
Yeah.
to me, there's not a whole lot I would change. I agree with Mark. I don't think I would have had Vinny in a purple vest on the cover of the album. It kind of really just showcases his personality and how out there he was and still is today. So,
Well put.
not a whole lot I would change. I would change what Vinny is wearing, as superficial as that sounds. But I would echo your sentiment that I would change what he is wearing on the album cover, or what they dressed the mannequin in to be Vinny on the album. Whoever you choose to believe. So, Ken, what about you? What would you do to change Lick It Up?
Well, like prior albums where you had sister albums, Rock and Roll Over Love Gun, and then you have Dynasty Unmasked. There's kind of sister albums there. This is a sister album to Creatures, though Creatures I think was better produced, like Mark said, a little bit better produced than Lick It Up. Though, in my opinion, Lick It Up is more in your face than Creatures of the Night. That's how I hear it and how I listen to songs. It to me it seems more raw than Creatures. I think this Creatures is better, just a better produced, the way they separated the instruments and so on. But yeah, this one was like a Vinnie Vincent album with Kiss backing him. Really, it must have been something like that because I think he wrote most of the material. Uh, the songs are maybe not quite as up to snuff as Creatures were, quality of songs, but it's pretty close. It's pretty darn close. Most of them are pretty darn good. There's a couple of ones that I could have, the Give Me More or whatever. Maybe the last, Gene song was a little lacking, but it's still a darn good album. It's one of my favorite albums. I still go back and listen to it a lot too. So as for the cover, I think it's great. Again, like we talked before, this album should have been titled Unmasked. That's why if they would have titled the Unmasked album Asylum, then they could have named this Lick It Up album Unmasked, which would have made more sense. It would have been the perfect title for this album, but whatever, So I guess they never thought they were going to unmask anyway, ever in the future. So otherwise, there's nothing else. I mean, great album, great. I still say it's pretty darn good production, But the packaging, I'm glad they had lyrics in it and that sort of thing. Again, no poster or anything, but they're, the money is not there still, not yet at least. So it's a great album.
Yeah. Creatures and Lick It Up, like you said, they're kind of sister albums. I don't think, I I hold them in high esteem, so I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about them because they're really kind of mirror images of each other in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
let's move on to an album that we can criticize, and that is Animalize.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do to change Animalize?
Mm-hmm.
Mark.
Okay, well, this frankly is where the wheels start coming off the bus, in my opinion. Okay,
Oh,
because
Lordy.
number one, the first mistake that happened in this is when I looked at the back and it said produced by Paul Stanley. It's like, oh, what's going on here? Why would he be producing this now? Okay, and I mean, executive producer Gene Simmons. I mean, if anybody who doesn't understand what executive producer is just basically a guy that's a producer on a telephone. He's never really there per se.
Yeah.
He's the guy you just get on the phone and say, yeah, we need some more cash because we need to buy some more tape. It's like, okay, I'll take care of it. And that's executive producer. He doesn't do really jack squat. Okay. So that perfectly explains Gene Simmons for this record. So the songs, I think that they got extremely lucky with Heaven's on Fire being as big as a hit a song as it was, because really the rest of the record is seriously lacking in material, in my opinion. And Mark St. John, there, he's capable. I like some of his playing, but really the angry bee in a jar thing, I can see it and I can hear it, like what they're talking about with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was the whole time period. Don't forget of the whole, virtuoso guitar player Yngwie Malmsteen was coming out at this point and stuff like that. Van Halen, and that was very high on people's important list at that point. Mm-hmm. So, they needed one person like that. The one thing that I would change, and this has very little to do with the making of the record, as far as studio stuff or stuff like that, is I think Kiss should have took a bit of time off at this point, seriously sat down and tried to find a permanent person to fill in the guitar player spot, because at this point they were doing such a revolving door of guitar players, it was starting to become almost a joke amongst the music industry. They should have sat down, give themselves a bit of time, really sit down with somebody, write some songs, get to know them a bit better, and really see if this person would gel with them. Go out, do a couple of shows somewhere at a club with this guy, see how it goes, and then, let's go and make a record then. Because they keep doing the same mistake. It seemed they would bring somebody else in, they would go in and do the record would come out, it would do okay, and then a few months later, Paul and Gene would be saying, "Oh, he wasn't really the right guy, but we were kind of pushed against the wall, and we needed somebody." It's like, come on, guys, they should have just. That's the one biggest change I would have suggested, is that to really sit down and find somebody that you could have just stuck with for the next couple of years. And they did that with the next record with Bruce, right? He fit in perfectly, and he stayed, and it was the right connection. But for Animalize, there's really not that much great stuff going on here. Production on here I don't like. The drum sound of this is really, really dated. They did that really bad gated snare drum sound that I hate on this record. There's a lot of bad, plate reverb sounds on here, and it's just the guitar tones are not even that full. They sound very thin, very razor bladey. It's just really like it is. It just, everything about this is just crap. Okay, I just really don't like this song. The songs on here. I mean, side 2, if we're talking vinyl, is just not even worth putting on, in my opinion. I mean, everything on that side is just terrible. I mean, I don't know. I mean, going from Creatures and Lick It Up to this is really stunning for me. And the thing that really makes me even more surprised is the fact that this record actually went double platinum, and that was all on the heels of Heaven's on Fire. So like I said, they should be thanking, the MTV audience at this point, because that song alone carried that record to that point. And nothing else on there really helped to get to that point. It was just pretty much Heaven's on Fire. So, lucky they had a sound that sort of connected for that song. it wasn't really over the top too much. There's no guitar solo to speak of it on there, so it's a really sort of almost like a pop song played metal wise, right? And that's why it connected. So I just really think that it's one of those records that I just don't really listen to too much, and I I would change pretty much almost everything about it. You know,
Everything but Heaven's on Fire.
yeah. I mean, if you change that, then really the record will tank, in my opinion. So. Uh, the production needed help. It needs a better producer for sure. Like I said, get somebody in. Like I said, Max Norman had my vote for that, and yeah, it's a bitter record for me to talk about because I thought it could have did so much better. They were on such a roll after those two records. I thought that it could have been a much better album than it turned out to be.
Yeah, for me, I would have kicked Gene Simmons in the ass and said, you know what, we're not. What are you doing with this movie with these little robots and spider-looking robots? We're not doing this. This is your Kiss is your priority, and not this. I would have tried to kick Gene Simmons in the ass a long time before it took him to get his head on straight with, by the time they started touring for Hot in the Shade and doing Revenge. I would have said that, you need to concentrate on what got you here, not with what you want to do now. So for me, it would have been get Gene involved more, tell Gene to go back to the drawing board and come up with some better songs. Again, if we're not going to bring Vinny back, well, let's just not look for a quick fix on guitar. Let's look for a permanent fix on guitar. And Bruce was already in the mix at the time. I'm not sure why they just didn't go with
one of the
right
solos.
He played on the album, so I'm not sure why they went with Mark, and I'm sure they had their reasons why they went with Mark as the flashy player, and it was the time in 1984, and that was the big thing. So one thing Mark didn't say in criticizing Animalize is the album cover.
Exactly.
Why? That's about the only thing he didn't say in criticizing Animalize, but the album cover is atrocious. Again, you had just taken off the makeup. It's your second album without the makeup. Why not put that image of you on the cover of the album, Kiss, without makeup? They felt the need to put out a version of Creatures of the Night with them without the makeup on. Why didn't you put the band on the cover of Animalize? So, and if you want to, play up the whole Animalize thing, if that's what you really want, well, put Paul in some kind of leopard or tiger-looking outfit. I really don't freaking know, but I would have done something along the lines of that, as opposed, or just take what's on the back cover and put that on the front cover. That's a cool shot of the band, in my opinion.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing. That's maybe the first thing I would have done. Mark, you didn't criticize the album cover. I'm very disappointed in you. Don't worry, we'll make up for it.
Yeah.
But I would have definitely put the back cover as the front cover, at least for starters. I would have told Gene that what you're bringing to the table isn't good enough. And, Burn Bitch Burn isn't working for me, and it's not going to work for the Kiss fans out there either. You need to try harder, as my high school gym coach would have told me. Try harder. So, and I would have gotten a rightful producer, and not just given Paul Stanley the reins to the ship, saying, well, your partner, he's off making a movie. Well, let's just have you produce it, and you just steer this whole ship by yourself. I think, you see some albums by bands that are self-produced, and I think bands just work better with producers, somebody telling them no, or someone telling them, yes, this works, or no, this doesn't, or I like this, but how about we add this to it? And you can get down to it. That's my issue with some of my issues with Sonic Boom and Monsters, that no one has the balls anymore to stand up to Paul Stanley and say, no, this doesn't work, because they're not going to be employed much longer if they do that. So I would have gotten a producer, I would have changed the album cover, and I would have told Gene that Kiss is your priority, not these shitty movies. Ken.
All right. Yes, the album cover is a joke. The title of the album is a joke. And I agree, the back would have been better on the front instead of those animal skins that they had on the front. Beyond that, yeah, producer, I actually put down one of Mark's earlier choices for another John Mutt Lang. I would have used for this. I mean, he could have totally made this a better album with his know-how and his way of constructing songs. So yeah, and just the sound itself would have been a lot better. And then as for like we talked about the lead guitarist, yes, they should have spent more time picking a lead guitarist instead of, yeah, I called this guy. He says he's a real good guitarist and he plays real fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great, he's hired.
well, yeah, but you know what? Eddie Van Halen is a great guitarist, but he constructs solos that fit the song. They fit the song. They sound good. They make sense. Not just a bunch of notes going zooming which way up and down the frets. And come on, let's. I can't even believe that Paul allowed that to happen at that point. I guess I know he did. It was probably worse than it ended up being. I'm sure it was a lot of other things. I don't know if even Paul might have actually stuck some of his own stuff in there instead of Mark just to try to calm things down.
Just refer to the Kissology commentary for answers to that, because Paul specifically said on there that they were the problem was half the time Mark was just in the studio by himself with maybe just Eric Carr and the engineer, and those guys were doing other things, whether it was recording vocals or whatever. He would come back and hear it and go, "What the hell's going on here?" And he would say, "Listen, you need to go back and listen to some free records or something like that to get a better idea of what we're trying to look for." And then he would look back at Paul and say, "I can play faster than those guys." And that was his whole attitude. Like, I mean, that right there is where Paul said, we have a problem here now. When as soon as he heard something like that, right?
Yeah, it's not about playing fast. I mean, gosh, just give me a break. So as for the song quality, I mean, maybe half the songs are halfway decent, and the other ones are total. They're not very good. Again, yeah,
It's crap.
Heaven's on Fire. I enjoy. It was a good deal, and I like Thrills in the Night myself, but maybe a couple other songs were pretty good. But that's about it. 4 or 5 songs were good, and the rest was kind of down the tubes. So for me, again, yeah, producer, song quality, guitarist, album cover.
Sound like me with Unmasked.
There's a lot going wrong with this. A lot going wrong, yeah.
You just sound like Mark in general.
So yeah, it's probably one of my lowest actually ranking Kiss albums. It's probably in my bottom 5 or something. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with you on that. I mean, about it being, most Kiss fans I think would put it in their bottom 5, if not their bottom 3 Kiss studio albums. So, if not their bottom, their worst Kiss album. So, Alex, what about you?
I think, for one, what Kiss Animalize needed with Mark was not Mark St. John, but Mark Kopenicky from Canada on lead guitar.
That would have been better.
Would have been better. Now, it's interesting because Bruce played on 2 tracks, right? He played on 2, right?
Yeah.
So
2 tracks. So he was kind of already in the picture in a way. It's kind of a shame. I mean, nothing against Mark St. John. I know he's dead, so he's trying to talk ill about those who aren't here anymore. But I really wish Kiss would have just snagged Bruce right up, especially if they were already having this, like, oh no, this isn't going to work with this guy with recording, but yet they could get those 2 tracks with Bruce. Seems like it would have been a no-brainer to go, we should maybe go with that Bruce guy. He's Bob's brother, and we like Bob. We've used Bob a couple times, and Bruce has done a pretty good job here. Let's keep Bruce. And I remember thinking to myself once, I've actually thought on this one, like, man, if they kept Bruce, and then if they didn't use, because if I'm not mistaken, the photo they used for the 85 Creatures was like the Animalize tour, right? It was like that they used some of the photos for the tour book of Animalize, but the photo they used for the creatures, the 85 issue that has Bruce Kulick, would have been a great cover for Animalize, because Bruce has all, like, they've got the animal print stuff on there as it is, and they could have easily have added, you know, the Animalize kind of styled writing, and even if they wanted to be funny, oh cool, and have the little nails that were like on the on like the movie cover for the Animalize Live Uncensored.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they could have had a killer album with that. I think, you know, again, having a producer, you need a producer. I like, I remember an interview one time with a guy, and it had to do with the book. And when the first edition came out, it got pulled, and it had to get republished, and edits were made to it. And they asked the guy, he said, "Well, wasn't there an editor at the time? An editor's like a producer for books." And he says, "No." And he goes, "Well, what would an editor have done?" And I know, like, produce, like, editor, it's like going to the dentist, you know. If, you know, they either will come fill in what needs to be filled, take what needs to be taken out, and if anything, just polish up what needs to be polished up. And that's what Kiss needs, you know, at least even with Animalize. You just needed somebody there to go, like you said, be ballsy enough to go, you know, Paul, good idea. Here's something better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's what we could have done. Like, I'm not, like you guys, I'm not too crazy for the last side of the second side. I do like, that was one track I do like on the other, on the back side.
It's a real memorable one, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. It's memorable. What was it? I like While the City Sleeps. I heard it on my phone. I do like that one, but other than that,
I was gonna say, don't tell me like Murder in High Heels. Or
no,
something.
that one's so weird, like murder, you know. No, I think like that and the first side, you know, I've had enough. Heaven's on Fire. Get All You Could Take. Excellent. Then you get Murder. While the City Sleeps, and even Under the Gun, I thought they did great live. But you know, the Gene tracks, I can't swear on here because I get in trouble. But it starts with Burn and ends with Burn, and
Yeah.
you know, I think I said it before. Maybe it's because I grew up, and I know people have used the term log as another term for taking a crap. So I've always just, you know, when I hear I gotta put
Stop it! All right, that's enough.
Put your turd in her fireplace.
I just that's what I put. Like, oh, somebody took a crap in the
That's
fireplace.
enough.
Wow, it's like a fetish show now.
So I just, yeah, you know, Gene's writing at this time. This, you know, just it was nothing there really with Gene with the writing. I do think I've Had Enough is a killer track, and I really was disappointed with the other songs by Paul, Thrills in the Night. Because I thought they had something with I've Had Enough. And of course, Heaven's on Fire is great, but I would have liked to have had a few more I've Had Enough into the Fire type songs on the album compared to some of the other turds on the album.
You know,
Don't say turds,
Alex,
don't say logs.
Alex, you know, you made me think of a joke about when Mr. Spock from Star Trek, what did he see when he went into the bathroom? He saw the captain's log. So that's that old joke. So we're really going down in tubes
I'm gonna
here.
spend
Wow,
hours.
we're doing poop jokes now.
But
Wow.
yeah, but I mean, like you said, you know, a producer would have been good. And actually, I like what Lonnie said too. I think Gene should have been put in his place, going like, you know, it's cool. You want to do movies? That's awesome. But first things first, your 40-hour-a-week job is here with the band.
Yeah.
Outside the 40 hours, you know, of your full-time job, you go do whatever you want, as long as it does not affect your job as a
You
member
want
of
to do
Kiss.
outside of these 40 hours. So these 40 hours, you're going to be dedicated. Or, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what my attitude is, or our attitude is around, like, my office. Like, what you guys do in your own time is your own time. But what you do here, you know, you're focused while you're here. So, and I think that's what somebody should have done with Gene. But again, you know, I think even going back to that time, you say something like that to Gene, well, you're not going to be working there much longer. And so, anyway, I think that's where we're going to leave off for the day. We had some technical difficulties getting started, and we've had some rants about some crappy Kiss albums. So, And
Turdy.
that, and I'd like to do Asylum when Julian's here, because I'd like to hear what Julian would change about Asylum. I think that'd be
His
fitting
favorite.
for him to be here for that. So, thank you for everyone who is still listening to the show. We'll see if we allow Alex back on the show next week after his potty mouth this week. We'll have to convene about that this week and decide what your
Secret
function
votes.
is. Right. But thank you everyone for listening and watching. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on the Spreaker app. You can listen on Google Play. You can download the show on iTunes. There's all kinds of different ways for you to listen to the show, however you choose to. And however you do, please comment on that application. Comment on the thread on the FAQ. Get involved in the discussion. There's been some good discussions the last few weeks, which I really enjoy hearing what you guys have to say. So what, to you, the FAQers, what would you do to change Dynasty, Unmasked, The Elder, Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, and Animalize? What would you do? Do you think Mark's too harsh on some of these albums? Do you think Alex has a potty mouth? Let us know what you think. I'd love to hear some comments. And Julian, I'd like to know what Julian would change about these albums as well. I'd like to hear his input as well, since we missed him on the show this week.
And we also need to know, too, that if you, like Alex, if you hear the word log, do you also think of turd as well?
You're on thin
Or
ice,
Lincoln
Mark.
or something like that.
Looks like
So-
Lonnie's had enough to the fire.
I've had enough of you. I'm writing your name down. Putting a couple check marks next to it. So, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for watching. Leave us your feedback on the show. So, for Julian, for Alex, for Ken, for Mark, I am Lonnie Weishauer, stlkiss on the board.
And Alex,
I said Alex.
you said Julian.
I said Julian, and I said Alex.
You said Alex. You did.
Oh, my apologies.
Stop correcting me.
It's my farewell.
It's enough. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Leave us your feedback. You stay classy, Kiss Army.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.